Kubor nakaslem jong unongsan Hima.
We reviewed on issues which are confronting the people and the state as a whole. And while we discuss on the background of the COVID and the necessary areas of concern which were required to be discussed, we also dwelt at length on many other issues, concerns of the people, concerns of the state. Now, coming to COVID-19 pandemic related issue, the concern about whatever grievances are being received from the general population, and the concern about inputs which suggest that cases are rising in the rural areas, and the quantum of tests against the reported cases of suspected COVID-19 infections in the rural areas are being seen as inadequate. In absence of adequate testing, we will end up in not being able to identify as to where the virus is hiding. And therefore, the testing becomes crucial. In fact, it is one of the weapons in containing the virus from spreading. Therefore, the CLP observed with concern this particular challenge, and where the government needs to ramp up its capability across the state in respect of ensuring adequate testing proportionate to the inputs that is being received by concerned district authorities. Therefore, the government needs to ramp up all the necessary measures that have been put in place. In other words, the measures that have been put in place are not considered adequate. Therefore, it must be ramped up. We must have a very, very realistic approach, a very, very scientific approach. In addition to that, we are receiving complaints after complaints from the people across the state in regard to non-availability of any support for the households who are affected whenever areas are declared as containment zone, restricting the movement of the people. Now, what happens to the residents? That was what was being articulated to us by all those members of the society, the local public leaders, various social organizations. There is sudden dislocation of economic activities, number one. But the most difficult position to which they are put in place is regarding sudden disruption of access to essential commodities, particularly in rural areas where there is no grocery shops in the localities, in the villages, where people have to walk miles to reach to the nearest market. Therefore, there is a need for the government to understand this hardship to which the people are put to, the hardship to which the people are subjected to whenever we need to embark upon these measures to contain the spread of virus. The onus of responsibility of providing the general relief is vested with the authorities, with the government. So therefore, the government has been found wanting in addressing this concern of the people. There's another matter of concern. Now, looking at the trend as to how the virus is mutating, we for sure know that we have to be prepared to face the inevitable third wave of the pandemic. And when we are talking about the likely emergence of the third wave, when and how fast is a question. Now, look at the vaccine policy of the government. The interval or the gap between the first jab and the second jab, which was earlier indicated at 6 to 7 weeks, have been increased to 12 to 16 weeks. And when we try to look at the reason for this sudden increase between the first dose and the second dose, we could not find any scientific answer. There is no scientific answer in as far as this gap is concerned. Therefore, the state government must take up this issue with Government of India. We must be realistic and we must be scientific. It cannot be based on somebody's whims and fancies. We cannot deviate from ground reality. We cannot deviate from whatever is considered realistic based on scientific understanding, based on scientific data. Now, therefore, even if you're looking at this gap of 12 to the designated gap, the revised gap, spreading from 12 to 16 weeks, it's a long gap between the first and the second jab. That means by next 12 and 16 weeks also you will not have enough number of the population covered by 2 doses of vaccination. That means you will not have the population who are fully equipped with the right kind of arsenal in the instant case through vaccination to face the challenge of this pandemic. To face the kind of challenge of the pandemic wherein we need to minimize the brunt of the pandemic on the overall health infrastructure and health facilities, and minimize the number of sufferings and loss of precious lives. Will the virus wait for 12 and 16 weeks to show its resurgence in the third wave? We don't know. We hope that it doesn't happen at all. But the trend indicates that it might strike at any point of time. And therefore, this particular vaccine policy strategy, I have tweeted today on this regard, reflecting my concern that nation as a whole is likely to be found unprepared to face the onslaught of the inevitable third wave because of this revised vaccine policy, wherein the people who have received first jab will have to wait for 12 to 16 weeks. But if we see the third wave striking sooner than that, that means the whole population will be seen unprotected, uncovered by the vaccine. So this must be taken up with an appropriate amount of seriousness with Government of India, and prevail upon Government of India to take a call which should be guided by complete scientific interpretation and not by anybody's individual opinion or strategy.